The Russia-Ukraine conflict has been raging for well over 100 days now. The casualties on both sides are said to run into the thousands, while the devastation in Ukraine has been severe. Initially, up to 7 million Ukrainians fled the country, but with the war prolonged, word is that many have started streaming back home to be with their families and defend their country. Nompumelelo Siziba sat down with Ukraine's ambassador to South Africa to discuss a range of issues.
Ukraine's ambassador to South Africa, Lyubov Abravitova, says the Russia-Ukraine conflict continues with no end in sight, pointing out that Russia continues with its mission to overwhelm the eastern part of Ukraine.
The main scene of action of Russian troops are in Donbass. In Donbass region, we are reading reports about Severodonetsk, Kherson, Mykolaiv region, and of course Donbass. So the main strategy now is to take over of all the Donbass region, moreover to connect Donbass with the annexed territory of peninsula of Crimea.
Despite its concentration in the Donbass region, however, the ambassador says there's no part of the country that's immune, as Russian forces continue with attacks in other areas of the country. In the meantime, the casualties, both military and civilian, are said to number in the thousands. More globally, the war has resulted in serious concerns around food security.
Because Russia is blocking today Ukrainian ports, all of them, we are not able to deliver agricultural commodities to our partners outside of Ukraine. And it's not only about the blockage of the ports, but it's also about mining of the sea, which makes it impossible for both military and civilian ships to move.
Up until the war began, Ukraine had been a key global producer and exporter of important commodities.
Ukraine on its own produces 10% of the world's wheat and 14% of world's corn and 47% of sunflower oil.
The ambassador says that Ukrainian farmers have managed to plant up to 2/3 of the crops that they would usually plant, but that the challenge is going to be whether there'll be a fruitful yield amidst the war and whether it can be harvested safely later in the year. Ukraine has been receiving billions of dollars and euros in financial and military support from the United States and the European Union. Asked how sustainable this support would be, the ambassador expressed confidence with the hope of being accepted into the European Union.
It's difficult to predict the level of support and the flows of military and financial support from each particular country, because they are suffering as well. They're suffering because of the global economical crisis due to this invasion, and they already have big shortages in their own budgets. We all have inflation, we all have the raise of prices for the fuel. That means that prices for all the commodities, for all the products will go up immediately. So the sooner we stop Russia, the lesser we will have consequences. And if we all together understand this, then we will act together and then we will be able to stop it.
The ambassador notes that following a teleconference between President Cyril Ramaphosa and President Volodymyr Zelensky and local South African officials with her post the start of the conflict, the communication has died down somewhat. Knowing South Africa's strategic relationship with Russia through BRICS, asked what the ideal response from South Africa would have been from her perspective, the ambassador says that South Africa is a signatory to the United Nations international conventions.
So the very logical step would be to condemn Russia of violating those basic rules that all of us so committed to, and secondly to provide the advice after Russia withdraws its troops on how we further can achieve sustainable peace.
When asked to also share their reflections on the conflict, Russian authorities said that they would only be available to do so on Sunday. In the meantime, Ukraine's aspirations to become a member of the European Union may soon be realized, as recent reports indicate that the European Commission has recommended that it be granted EU candidate status. Nompumelelo Siziba, SABC News, Johannesburg.